Trickery. If you're not paying attention, you're probably getting tricked. So, welcome back to the show. And this time we're talking about trickery when it comes to Mars. So, what does this mean? You hear a lot of times from so-called Mars authorities that in case of an asteroid hit, we need a place to go because Earth will be destroyed or unlivable, and Mars will serve as an alternative. You hear about people like Elon Musk talking about we need to be a multi-planetary species. Basically saying that, hey, there's a planet called Mars, which is not too far from here, relatively speaking. We can set up shop there, so in case asteroid hits the Earth, like the way the dinosaurs were wiped out some millions of years ago, we do have a place to go. And okay, so on the surface, that sounds kind of makes sense. Mars certainly has an atmosphere. It may be thin. There's some water there in the frozen state, and you've got carbon dioxide. While it's not breathable, you still got the oxide in the carbon dioxide, which means that we may be able to find some way to extract the oxygen from the carbon dioxide and be able to do something with. It's pretty close. Mars is pretty close to the sun, relatively speaking, so therefore solar panels could still somewhat work. It has a day and night cycle similar to Earth. The year is twice as long, I think, as far as Mars going around the sun. But in any event, it seems like it's pretty comparable compared to any other planet in the solar system. All right, so that's fine. So that in itself is not necessarily a problem, just thinking about that. But it becomes a problem when this whole Mars thing starts to be sold as this is really a possibility, that it's actually going to be a potential way to save humanity. Now, without going into the whole point of saving humanity, how many people are we going to be able to ship there? Forget all of that stuff. Let's talk about the main reason why we should actually go to Mars. The main reason why people are selling Mars as like the lifeboat. Well, thing is, if an asteroid hits Earth, let's just go to that worst case scenario, which is what the whole thing with the dinosaur, right? So the dust is put in the air. Dust is put into the air from the impact. First, the Earth gets really hot, killing a whole lot of things. Then it gets really cold from the cloud cover. Regardless, life will be extinguished. Except that it won't, because these climate changing events, or I forget what the actual name is, but these major catastrophic events never ended life on Earth. The matter of fact, ever since life started on Earth, life never ended. It's not like life started and then it was completely wiped out and then through some mechanism came back again. It was very tough that life came about to begin with in the first place. So life was always continuous, regardless of all of these mechanisms, all of these catastrophes that happened. Life always persisted somewhere on Earth and rebounded, regardless of the harsh environment, the radiation, the lack of oxygen, extreme heat, extreme cold. Well, relatively extreme cold anyways. Life always existed. Now, let's go to Mars. Mars, as far as we can tell, never had life. There was never a chance for life, right? So basically, what does that all mean? That means that no matter what happens, short of the planet literally breaking apart and becoming a bunch of huge pieces of rocks, there's always some place on Earth that will sustain life, which means that gives us a better chance of surviving on this planet, which is Earth, than anything that Mars has to offer, because Mars never had a chance of supporting life. Life doesn't exist on Mars if you just drop it there. Once again, as far as we know. But Earth does. You know, whether or not the entire surface of Earth is destroyed, you got the oceans. Now, some may argue that, hey, the ocean depends, there's the food chain, and you depend on the sun and so forth and so forth. That may be true. Actually, that's not even may be true. That's true to a lot of extent. But when you go deeper and deeper into the ocean, you end up in certain places, maybe not everywhere, but in certain places where you have life that is theming around these thermal vents, right? Get their energy not from the sun, because it's way too deep. Sunlight doesn't get down there rather. And also, they're not necessarily dependent on the food chain from the surface. So it's almost as if these particular species are more or less independent of what happens at the surface. And that means that no matter what happens at the surface, you still have life down there. And if you have life down there, that means we as human beings are still better off on Earth than we'll ever be on Mars, which has no place where life can even hide. People are talking about the underground. Maybe. That remains to be seen. So the bottom line of all this stuff is basically, we're better off doing whatever we can to make Earth our lifeboat, not Mars. I'll see you next time when I come up with some other random topic. Later.